Hey guys, it's TheFrXion here, or Tiger Tank 1-2, however you want to call me, I don't really care, and welcome back to World of Tanks. Today's topic is going to be the T-34-3. This is the Chinese Tier 8 premium medium tank, one of the, I'm not even sure how many premium tanks the Chinese have, or premium mediums. I think 3. I own all of them, the 59 Patton, the Type 59, and the 34-3. So, why am I making a video about the T-34-3? Is it coming out on sale? Can you buy it soon? No, none of that. It's because recently I've played a lot of games in my WZ-120. This tank in stock is pretty atrocious, but as soon as you get this vehicle fully upgraded, it's actually pretty damn good. Really, really good, and it's almost the same as the T-34-3. The only difference is that this vehicle did get a buff 2 years ago, or no, now it's 3 years ago in 2018. This vehicle was buffed, and ever since then, it actually has become quite a competitive Tier 8 vehicle, even for a premium tank. And that's the reason why I'm making this review right now, because if this vehicle, or if this tank comes out in a sale, be it the black market, be it just a normal wargaming sale, or be it like a discount where you can buy it for credits, you know, like the black market and all that kind of stuff, you are going to be informed. And I'm going to be making this review because I also want to review all of my premium tanks that I have currently in my garage, and I do not plan on buying any more premium tanks in the near future or in the future for this game, because I've spent so much money on this game and I have so many premium tanks that I haven't even really played or tested out. So I'm just going to put this as my priority to get all of my vehicles reviewed, get all of the premium tanks that I have in my garage reviewed, so you guys know what their deal is about, and if you should maybe pick them up if you have the opportunity or not, or which ones you should, you know, keep your hands off. So there are going to be a couple of videos coming in the near future where I'm going to be talking about a lot of premium tanks. So you must be warned, or at least I'm going to warn you right now. It's obviously not going to be the only content on this channel, but it's going to be a part of the channel. So I want to get all of that done, and the T-34-3 is going to be the very first vehicle we're going to review in that cycle. So T-34-3, what kind of a tank is it? I think if you've played the Chinese medium tanks, you can already guess that it's going to be a brawling medium tank that has a very competitive 122 millimeter gun. If I'm not mistaken, maybe it's 120, another 100. No, it's 122 millimeter gun. And it is going to sport quite a bit of armor on the turret and on the hull to allow you to, you know, be a bit of a brawling medium tank. So what can you expect of Chinese mediums? Well, most of the time they're not very accurate. Their rate of fire isn't very good. Their alpha damage is quite decent. It's going to be quite high for a medium tank, definitely. And I think those stats are portrayed in this vehicle, or they are very, very much how you expect the vehicle to be. So you have the 390 alpha damage for a tier 8 medium tank. That is pretty damn nifty. Very, very heavy. If somebody gets hit with that at tier 8, well, it's going to hurt a lot. Tier 6 and tier 7, it's going to be even more devastating. Have I mentioned that this tank will not be facing tier 10 vehicles because it has preferential matchmaking? This is really important. This vehicle has preferential matchmaking, and it's not going to be facing tier 10s. You will be facing tier 9s, but tier 10s is not going to be something that is going to be happening anytime soon. Unless they take out preferential matchmaking, but I don't see them doing that because there were some serious repercussions when Wargaming tried to do that, and the people were very, very upset. So they're not going to be touching that anytime soon. The rate of fire on this tank is not very good, as already mentioned. 5.31 rounds per minute. That's 11.31 seconds reload time. I do have a good crew, or at least a decent crew on this vehicle, and I do have equipment to get that reload time down. This is very important. Gun rammer is currently on this vehicle, and I also have the enhanced gun laying drive and a vertical stabilizer. those are basically a must for this tank because the dispersion, as you can see, is pretty damn horrible. 0.41. This is with the equipment on. 0.41 at 100 meters. This tank does not do very well at a very long distance. It doesn't even do very well at medium ranges. You're going to be missing certain shots that you would not be expecting to miss in any other vehicle. And having a reload time of 11.31 seconds, if you're in a close quarter combat or medium range engagement, is going to be quite off-putting when you're going to be putting a shell like 5 feet next to the vehicle instead of hitting it directly where you aimed it at. But still, I have to say, the DPM, it's not the worst, it's not the best. You have to be, you just have to know what you're getting yourself into when you're playing the T-34-3. This tank is a heavy-hitting medium tank that can brawl and that can, be a flanking kind of instrument, something to breach through certain lines. That's what this tank can do very, very well. The gun traverse or the turret traverse with 49.07 degrees per second is pretty decent. It's not the worst. I think it's on the better end. 6.5 degrees of gun depression is what makes this vehicle a lot better than the tier 9 counterpart, which obviously is a tier 9 and not a tier 8, but it has 6.5 degrees of gun depression. That is 3.5 degrees more gun depression than the WZ-120 has with the 120. So you are going to be a lot more flexible with this tank. Once again, the premium tank status, the status that you have to buy this tank, comes screeching in hot because obviously having 6.5 degrees of gun depression is something that's a lot better than having only 3 degrees of gun depression. The aim time of 2.47 obviously also has been boosted with the equipment that we have, but still 2.47, it's not the worst, it's not the best, but this tank certainly does not do very well regarding range. Now the pen also is a bit lacking. 186 millimeters of pen with standard shells. That is going to get you basically everywhere at tier 7, tier 6, maybe tier 8. You can still use that if you know the weak spots of vehicles. But, if you go into the tier 9 games, even some tier 8s, when you have to face certain premium tanks in a hull down position, all that kind of stuff, you're going to have a bit of a problem with the 186 millimeters of penetration with the standard shells. But if we take a look at the shells, the shell velocity is also going to be something that's going to be quite a bit of a letdown. Only 800 meters per second. That's on par with the heat shells usually, and the heat shells this time around are even worse with 720. So yeah, your shells fly very, very long and they're very inaccurate. So this tank is not meant for long range engagements. Very important thing that you have to keep in mind when you're playing this tank. So 250 millimeters of pen, on the other hand, with heat is pretty nice if you need it. I didn't really need any premium shells with this tank so far. I just always carry a lot of premium shells if there is some kind of really weird tier 9 matchup where I get into a game where I face 15 tier 9s and I'm all by myself and I have to punch through them. But whatever, it's not the most important thing because you have preferential matchmaking, and at tier 8, you're still going to be able to be quite competitive with 186 millimeters of pen. You just need to have gameplay sense. You just need to have game knowledge. That's very important. So this tank has 1,300 hit points, 100 millimeters of frontal armor. I think that's on par with the WZ-120, 80 on the side, 45 on the rear. So all in all, hull armor is actually quite decent. There are going to be occasional bounces from tanks at tier 8, maybe tier 8, but definitely tier 7 and tier 6. And the 200 millimeters of the turret armor at the front is really, really nice, 130 on the side and 60 on the rear. You don't really have to be that worried about your turret. You have a cupola on top, 2 of them actually. They are going to be weak spots, but I'm not gonna be thinking that people will be trying to aim for those weak spots if they're close up. You're going to be in their face. They will probably try to hit them, but if you're in a medium range, if you're on the move, it's going to be quite difficult to actually be able to go through your turret, especially if you're moving your vehicle and you're wiggling around. So armor-wise, this tank certainly is on par, and it has gotten a serious buff with the patch in 2018. Now, mobility. This is the question with this tank. The mobility on paper sounds pretty decent, right? You have 50 kilometers per hour top speed, 20 kilometers per hour, in reverse. You have a very, very good traverse speed, so your tank is going to be able to turn itself very, very quickly on the spot, 51.43 degrees per second. That's pretty amazing if you think about it. But the horsepower or the engine power is really not the best. 520, and you're about 38 tons heavy. You will take a bit to reach the 50 kilometers per hour top speed. So what I would really recommend, to be fair, is to actually use the turbocharger. If you put a turbocharger on this tank, you will gain an additional 5 kilometers per hour, and you'll gain an additional 52 horsepower to the 520 that you have at the moment. And that is going to be probably something that you will feel. I didn't put it on because when I first equipped this tank, I did it before Equipment 2.0, so it's still the old layout, and I have just played around with it at the moment, but I've noticed that the tank is kind of sluggish and slow, and I think you could really make this tank better if you actually do put on the turbocharger in the designated slot. If it's already there, why not use it, right? I didn't do that right now because I don't want to spend my credits. I just earned all the credits to be able to use, to get some of the tier 10s that I have lying around in my garage. That's one of the main reasons why I started playing this tank again, or the premium tanks, to get credits. And it's been a quite annoying journey because you have to play so many games. And I started using boosters even, and somehow I have the feeling that my money or my credit counter is not going up. It's kind of weird, but that's just how the game works. So moving on, we're taking a look at the concealment. This tank can be quite concealed quite okay, in my opinion, if you put on the camo, if you put a camouflage on or a paint job and you have your crew trained for it. 481 points certainly isn't too bad. Since you're going to be more in the offensive line, that is not the most important part. I think what's much more important is that you have brothers in arms, that you have probably repairing or repair skill on this vehicle, since you don't want to get tracked somewhere. This tank does take a bit of time to get up to speed, so if you get tracked out in the open field, you're basically done for. Since your side armor, your armor is decent enough for a tier 8 medium tank, but your side armor is not going to hold up against anything if you're out in the open. So spotting wise, this tank I think has a base view range of 370 meters, if I'm not mistaken. Actually, it's 380 meters, which is quite interesting, since I think the standard tier 8 medium tank, the T-34, has actually 370 meters, so you get an additional 10 meters view range right there. That's what you get for paying, real life money for this tank. And I think all in all, this tank now has become a really good kind of choice for the Chinese tech tree if you want to train your crew, if you want to earn some credits, because with the preferential matchmaking, you're basically on par with the Type 59. Instead of the 100mm gun that you have on the Type 59, you have a 122mm very hard-hitting gun, which almost boasts the same amount of pen. The rate of fire on the Type 59 is obviously better, and the Type 59 is just, let's face it, this is a legendary tank that has not been sold in a very long time. And all the people that have actually gotten their hands on this tank, they remember this vehicle fondly for it being completely overpowered back in the days, but ever since they started power creeping the tier 8 premium tanks even more, the Type 59 hasn't been what it used to be. Especially the armor didn't really hold up anymore back in the days, and then they gave it the HD model, they buffed it, and since then it's actually okay, but it's not the best. I would say that the T-34-3 with the preferential matchmaking is a very good choice. I actually enjoy playing it a lot. If you like playing the Chinese medium tanks heavy hitting guns and you can work around the frustration of, you know, missing certain shots that you actually shouldn't miss, I think this tank can be quite good for you, because at tier 8, with preferential matchmaking, having 390 alpha damage is quite a novelty still. It is not unique. Like, it's not the most unique thing, but it's quite, let's say it's quite a novelty still. Because I picked out 2 other vehicles that I thought were in a similar category, and maybe we could also add the CS52, since that, no, actually it's 320, but having like 390 alpha as a tier 8 premium tank is something that is not very common. And I think the one that I put in there was the guard tank, which is actually sporting, I'm not sure what the guard is using. I think it's also a 120mm gun. It has to be, because I don't think that a 105mm gun, yeah, it's a 122mm gun. It has to be. And yeah, 390. Other than that, I looked at the Object 274, and you can see that these vehicles did definitely come later on, and they were buffed. I mean, their pen is a lot better than the T-34-3's pen. The gun handling is a lot better. Also, the rate of fire has increased quite dramatically, as you can see with the Object 274A. The gun traverse, maybe the turret traverse, is not as good. The gun depression is not as good, but just by 0.5. But other than that, the gun handling is a lot better. You can see that the gun handling on the guard is 0.1 dispersion better than the T-34-3. Even the Object 274A is a lot better in that aspect. But you can see the DPM this tank still is in that area, and what the T-34-3 doesn't face are tier 9s, are tier 10s, and that is something that is very, very valuable if you're looking into the preferential matchmaking area. So, I think I've spoken enough. Without further ado, let's jump into a game and just check out what this tank is all about, and then we can have the final verdict, and I can tell you guys if it's a good choice or not, and we'll see. So, let's jump over to the gameplay. Okay, so the game that I've chosen for this review was on the map Overlord, and as always, like, showing a certain game is not going to be showing you the full experience of the tank. You cannot see all of the good and the bad in a single game. At least most of the time you can't. So I'm just gonna see it that I can be as transparent as possible, because this is one of the ideal matchups that you can find yourself in. And this is something that does happen quite frequently, at least I've noticed. Yesterday I've played about 10 games in this vehicle, and most of the games I was playing against tier 7s and tier 8s. And I think it certainly does fit into the category, and it actually is quite decent against tier 8s, and even against tier 7s it's going to be doing quite well. You can see we are top tier right here. There are only 6 tier 8 vehicles in this game, and basically all of them are premium, except for the Lorraine artillery and the M43 and the T-69 on the enemy team. But this tank certainly can do quite a lot. It can be quite combat effective at this kind of range. You can see that we've already dealt 805 damage in a very quick succession, only about, let's say, a minute. We've been able to actually get into a position and utilize the 6.5 degrees of gun depression that we have with this tank. And that is something that is very unique for Chinese tanks. There you can see the very bad accuracy, and here you can see the armor that this tank is equipped with. Against tier 7s, the armor is certainly going to be holding up. Against tier 8s, it's going to be a bit more difficult if it's the hull armor, but turret is going to be another story by itself completely. But you can see that the tank feels a bit sluggish if you're driving around, except if you're going down a hill, it's going to be quite fast. But if you're driving on even ground, it will take you quite a bit to get to the top speed. And, you know, the accuracy, the aim time, those are certainly big flaws in this machine. Or, yeah, I mean, they're like downsides, but you do have the alpha damage that is really, really crazy. the alpha damage that really is satisfying to see when you hit somebody for 400 and you basically rob them of 40% or 30% of their HP. That's exactly what happened right there to this P-43 tear. This tier 7 wasn't able to penetrate our lower plate or our upper plate, and we managed to punish him with that big 355 HP shell, which was obviously a low roll, since you have about 390 alpha damage on your standard roll, and having 355, that is certainly a very big low roll. But I mean, the accuracy 0.4, yeah, but you can still hit those shots occasionally. I mean, that was quite far away, and we still managed to get that M40-43, and those things can work if your target is stationary. So right here, this is a bit of an awkward scenario. We have a T-69, we have SU-101, both of them seeming to be AFK. I decided to actually shoot the T-69 because I was not able to get the LTG. And now you can actually see what happens when you decide to actually try to help out your teammate, and what happens with the very, very horrendous accuracy of this tank, even though you're fully aimed in. And all of a sudden we're getting swarmed by Karo P88 on the one side, another Karo P88 on the other side, and there comes SU-130PM. You're still going to be able to do those snapshots, in close quarter combat, as we just did with the SU-130PM right there. But it was a bit unfortunate for us that like all the tanks that were defending the ridgeline against our vehicles that were hiding in the back decided to come in and swoop in for the kill with the T-34, or at least with me and the SU-100M1. So yeah, I mean, with those numbers, you're not going to be able to survive, but we still are going to be winning this game. But if you think about it, having dealt 2,859 damage, 720 damage blocked, 2 kills, 641 assistance damage, this premium tank is going to be a pretty good earner. The premium shells, to be fair, you're going to be needing them when you're playing against tier 9 vehicles if you want to be really combat effective. But I don't think that it's going to be happening as often, especially now with the changes to the matchmaker, that you do not have to completely rely on the premium shells. You could see that I didn't fire a single premium shell because it would have been complete overkill and a waste of money. And this game, I think I earned about 96,000 credits with premium. I didn't have a booster on, so it's a pretty good earner. It's a good earner, and I think it now is a pretty good all-round vehicle that lacks in the gun handling department, since it needs to have some weak spots, but it has a huge trump up its sleeve, or a trump card, and that's basically being preferential matchmaking. If you have preferential matchmaking, you're going to be profiting very, very much of this vehicle, and I think that's why I can say, let me just skip back real fast so we can go over to my dead carcass of a body. Okay, somehow my free camera mod is not working because I think Wargaming just released another patch and I have to redo that, but it doesn't really matter. I can say this much: I really enjoyed the WZ-120. I enjoy the T-34-3. I enjoy the gameplay. If you like heavy, if you like heavy-hitting medium tanks in World of Tanks, I think getting the T-34-3 is certainly not a bad thing. It is going to be quite effective with preferential matchmaking. It's not going to be as effective against tier 9 vehicles where you have to use gold, but still it is a decent vehicle that has gotten certain buffs that made it really, really good. Or I'd say decent enough to the current meta of fast tanks with big alpha and crazy amounts of pen. But it doesn't have the crazy amount of pen, but it has enough mobility to get you from point A to P. And the alpha damage is something that really, really shines. If you hit somebody for 400 alpha damage, or for 400 damage in their face, and they're a tier 7, a tier 8, it's going to hurt them a lot, especially if it's a medium tank. Just imagine you hit a T-69 for 400, he loses already like a third, no, let's say a quarter of his HP that he had previously. So I'd say the T-34-3 is worth it if you like those medium tanks that have heavy hitting guns, and you can work with the frustration that it's not going to be the most accurate vehicle, that the gun handling is a bit weird, that it's not the fastest premium tank. If you can work with that, this tank is going to be a great addition to your garage. If you can't, don't get it. This tank is definitely very difficult to get a hold of, I think, right now, because I don't remember when they sold it the last time. You can no longer buy it via the in-game store. They took that out, so you're kind of left with only the 59 Patton. And the 59 Patton is a bit of a different story. We'll get to that vehicle probably in a couple of videos because I'm going to be reviewing the 59 Patton as well. But I think that the T-34-3 with the patches that they have released with the preferential matchmaking is a really good choice, and actually a tank that I enjoyed quite a lot. So, as always, I'd love to hear what you guys think of this tank. Tell me in the comment section below, and I'll see you guys on the next video.